Okay, we're live now, it says.
Well, wonderful.
2 people watching. Whole shitload of people.
Yeah, well, welcome everybody.
Wow, crazy.
It's pretty neat.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty crazy day, and we're gonna let people join a little bit, before we really go full bore. Anyway, it's a cold day here in Iowa, Art.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I see we've got people from Iowa, people from all over. Hi, D'Artagnan. Lots of different people. We wanna give people a chance to get on board before we talk about some of the issues of the day, in particular, the arrest of Don Lemon and woman named Georgia Fort, who's an independent journalist in Minneapolis. And I just thought that we should talk about it. To me, it's an assault on their First Amendment rights, and I just wanted to talk. Hey, there's my sister too. That's pretty neat. Um, okay, so Art, tell everybody a little bit. Most people here know you, but why don't you do your regular spiel while we're waiting for some more people?
Well, yeah, Bob, thanks. I'm Art Cullen. I'm the editor of the Storm Lake Times Pilot in Northwest Iowa, and I have a Substack called Art Cullen's Notebook, where I write about a lot about ag and rural issues, small town, immigration, and then lately I've been bitching a lot about politics, uh, especially Kim Reynolds, and, she's driving me crazy. She's under my skin, man. I'm glad she's leaving, like a bad itch.
Well, and you are also are we pundits, Art?
Yeah, we're members if as long as we're doing this stuff here, we are officially members of the punditry.
Yeah. Well, we try to pay attention and do our best. And you know what? We're both
Digging
really
that sweatshirt, Bob. Panthers, man. The Panthers.
thank you. Yeah. We tell what we see as the truth. And it's we just do our best. We're very grateful that there's so many people here that subscribe. You're also, I mean, when I started down the pundit path, you've also written for the Guardian, for the Washington Post. You've been on MSNBC, on CNN, probably all the networks. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I've been pretty lucky. Yeah, I used to write columns kinda regularly for the Washington Post and New York Times, but I kept getting rejected all the time, and, I just really it bugged the hell out of me. I quit. I hate rejection, and, so I just stopped offering columns, and, and plus, they've treated me as if I were quaint, and, but anyway, that's my own little ego thing, but it's been fun. It's been fun, but I would rather just talk about Iowa issues, stuff that I understand, and, so I'm glad to be here with you today.
Yeah, and for people that don't know me, I'm an anthropologist. I live in Knoxville now. Lived in the county before, um, and I write at Deep Midwest, politics and culture. Um, I've written for the New York Times, Time, the Register, the Gazette, Iowa Capital Dispatch, Kansas City Star. Lots of different places, and pretty much anybody that will have me. I've never broke into the Washington Post though, Art. So you'll always have me on that.
Well, forget about it. It's the editorial page has gone down the drain.
And did you mention you have a Pulitzer Prize?
Right, I did. I was, very fortunate to win a Pulitzer Prize in 2017 for editorial writing,
Yeah.
and it was about, surface water pollution, agricultural surface water pollution in the Des Moines Water Works lawsuit, and, so my ship came in.
Well, there's so many things that we could talk about, but I was driving this morning and I was listening to Iowa Public Radio when I heard that former CNN broadcaster and now independent journalist, Don Lemon, who everybody knows, and a local Minneapolis journalist, by the name of Georgia Fort. They were arrested. They were both covering, not participating in, but covering a protest at a church in Minneapolis and, just getting, you know, comments on what people had to say, interviewing people, the kind of thing we normally do.
And the pastor of the church, works for ICE, in a
Yes.
supervisory role in the Minneapolis region, I believe.
Yeah, that's correct, and so there were protests about that. And so then heard this morning that they were both arrested, and Don was
Along
in
with about 6 others, if I'm not mistaken?
yes, I'd read 4 others, and those 4
Okay.
others were participants in the protest.
Right.
And so the Department of Homeland Security knew they may not have known, Georgia Fort was a journalist, but she identified herself as a journalist. She's very well recognized in the area. They knew who Don Lemon was, and now they're both in jail, the last I've heard. Maybe they bailed out, but
And they're both black.
yes, they're both black, and Don Lemon is gay.
Right.
And so this has repercussions for all of us, all Americans, because they're now coming after the press. And so and to me, that's a in direct violation of our First Amendment's rights. Can you share your thoughts on this?
Yeah, we're seeing freedom swirl down the drain. It's, uh, uh I've got a lot of confused thoughts about all this that, again, not to sound overly woke, but as a white male, you know, uh, you realize now that, uh, black people have never been free and, native people, and you realize that the violence that the state has put on them all these centuries, uh, is now being put upon us and as white men and, women, and, now, so the charade of freedom is over. My dad, a World War II veteran, must be turning in his grave. He thought he was fighting for freedom, and it turns out that it was just a ruse.
Mhm. Yes, and so what it means is that and this is in the context of what's been happening, to the media over the last, 5 or 6 years. Jeff Bezos buying the Washington Post, um, all kinds of hedge fund managers buying up the newspapers and selling them off for parts. Uh, the media giants, bowing to Donald Trump, settling lawsuits out of court, being afraid of Donald Trump, essentially letting him, determine some of their content, installing, for example, Barry Weiss at CBS to Trump's approval. Trump is Trump has wrested the media from our role, in serving the public, or at least he's trying to. And a lot of and what's bad about this in particular is they're both independent journalists. I presume Don Lemon was able to make a lot of money when he was on television, but I doubt if Georgia Fort has the resources to fight this in court. Hopefully, a group of lawyers will come forward and do it pro bono for her. I mean, maybe she has deep resources, but I doubt it. But if the big networks bow down, all that's left is ultimately will be, people like us.
Well, yeah, that's where it already is, and, uh, CBS is is a house organ for the Trump administration, so, we're already there, and, you're right. No, we don't have the resources to defend ourselves, against the state, and, I just can't stress enough that, kiss freedom goodbye. What freedom that's at least some of us, most of us enjoyed, uh W it was a charade. It was a facade. It was never real. so long I mean, they shot, uh, 4 students at Kent State in 1970, and we still thought we were living in a free country. We've been deluding ourselves for a half century. Uh, Now I sound like an old man, but I remember I remember, uh, the shootings at Kent State and how shocking it was and how it, was the beginning of the end of the Vietnam War. Uh, and, but it doesn't feel like the shootings of Renee Good and, Alex Pretty, are the beginning of the end. It appears to me that there is a full, uh, totalitarian crackdown going on in the United States. And Don Lemon is the first is the first journalistic victim, I guess, the first reporter, and uh, the woman. I'm sorry, whose name escapes me. I'm sorry. Uh, what's her name again, Bob?
Georgia Fort.
Georgia. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm going senile. But it these this is a I mean, it's a dark day for America. It's hard to fathom that reporters are being arrested for and if you again, if you see the video, uh, eh, they were just covering the event. Now, whether these protesters should have gone into church and violated their freedom to worship, uh, that's a question for those protesters, not seemingly for Don Lemon
Right, or Georgia Fort.
or Georgia Ford.
They both expressed, and I saw on videos that they both expressed, to the people that were there repeatedly that they were there as journalists, not as participants.
Right.
And so, I
But Trump
reported.
doesn't like Don Lemon, and Don Lemon called out Trump and got himself fired and so on and so forth, and so it's all part of this media circus, and then, you know but what's happening is that, the government is arresting reporters. But it's not new, I when during the George Floyd, uh, uh, protests, they were the Minnesota National Guard, uh, under the orders of a Democratic governor, was shooting at a CNN news crew, shooting rubber bullets at, crews from CNN, and then Ali Velshi from MSNBC was actually hit with rubber bullets. And so there's been an assault going on against, free expression for some time now, and that was, again, a Democratic governor ordered out the guard, to, shoot down, uh, independent reporters, a free press, and so it's not new, it's just getting worse.
Well, it's getting worse under the Trump administration, and plus he's so used to lawsuits and what's called lawfare that he'll try to break anybody that he can that he disagrees with, and he's going to disagree a lot. I covered the protest. I tried to get into the Trump rally, and I've been into Trump rallies before, but and I just report on it. I've tried to get in before, and I couldn't get into the one in Clive, so I covered the protest outside, and I wrote a piece called something like, "More people were there protesting Trump than were in the rally," which I think is really good. When there's 3,000 people outside,
Right.
maybe 700 people inside, I think people needed to know that. And, so, I mean, if he doesn't like that, I mean, you and I have both been.
Excuse me, while I think of it, Bob, if I may, I'd
Yeah,
also like to remind us that during the, George Floyd riots, they tried to charge a reporter with the Des Moines Register, for refusal to disperse from the Merle Hay Mall parking lot. Was it, Isabella Rosario, was it, or was it
I think
somebody
so.
else?
She went to
Uh
court. It went all the way to court, and it was just.
Yeah, so, they've been trying to arrest reporters, but they actually finally this one's it may stick, but it's just all part of their game for sure.
Well, let's hope it doesn't stick. But of course, the Justice Department does whatever Trump says. Um, some of the courts are holding. The Supreme Court hasn't really. They're still sort of
Right.
unpredictable, but they lean Trump. And so this is a fundamental test of the Constitution, and they're just going to keep doing it. And Trump, from the very beginning, has says that he's called the media fake news because he doesn't want people to believe them. Okay, so even now it's to the point where people don't believe their eyes.
Right.
We've seen the videos, and people
Right.
won't, our Trump supporting friends and family members won't, they'll believe Trump rather than their own eyes.
Yeah, and, uh, when you look at that again, you look at the video inside the church. Now, whether those protesters should have gone in there or not is another question, but Don Lemon, uh, was not disrupting anything, other than any more than the protesters already had, and he interviewed, uh, a church official, uh and the guy was saying, conducted an interview with him, and he was being polite and so on, and they were conversing, and the guy was upset by the presence of the protesters, but he wasn't upset with Don Lemon. That was just part of the Trump vendetta, against Don Lemon. It's his part of his retribution, and, people who think that he wasn't going to do it should, ask themselves, where were they during the campaign? Uh, he was threatening to do this. He was threatening to round up undocumented immigrants, whether they committed crimes or not. And he was threatening to put his retribution on all those people who had annoyed him during his first term. And so I don't know why people, especially in Iowa, bought his line of bullshit. Uh, yeah, and they're shocked that, they would shoot people to death, arrest reporters, and sweep up five-year-old children and send them off to detention facilities in Texas. "Oh, we didn't vote for this." Well, what did they think they were voting for?
Yeah, he told us what he was going to do, Project 2025, laid it out pretty clearly. Yeah, and you know what? We live in a surveillance state now, and so it's very different. As I was doing my interview, I was doing a TikTok video. I did a TikTok video about the protest. I was just doing what we do, interviewing people, and I talked to like maybe a 13-year-old girl and her parents, and the 13-year-old, and I asked the 13-year-old girl why she was there, and she said something that I said, "Well, I can't use that," and it was about Trump. And I said, "I can't use that." And so I said, "So give me another reason why you're there." And she said the same thing again. And she said it 3 times. And I couldn't say it. I didn't use it. I wouldn't use it. But if I used it, Secret Service or FBI or something might have been at that girl's door because
You should stop right there, Bob. You
I mean, I didn't
they
e
might be heading down to her house by now.
well, I never used it. Well, I guess it's on my phone, but I never used it because I presume she was joking. But see, the thing is that they will take anything and turn it into a crime.
Yeah.
And even if it is, yeah, especially if it isn't a crime. Being a reporter isn't a crime,
Right.
and they're arresting.
They were the Lemon, ironically, is charged with, violating by exercising his First Amendment rights, was violating the First Amendment rights of the worshipers, and, uh, which is bogus, of course. It was the protesters who would be violating their First Amendment rights to worship, not the bystander journalists. Uh But that's a difficult concept for these amateur attorneys of, the Trump administration,
Well, and
led by
Terry,
Pam Bondi.
yeah, I don't know if she's an amateur. She's a professional hatchet woman, is what she is. But Terry in the comments says it seems that the Lemon interview with maybe a pastor inside the church would constitute an implied invitation for Lemon to be there. I'm not a lawyer, but I think the guy was a church official. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it was the person in the notorious person in question, but it was some guy in a tie and a suit and tie, and yes, it would imply consent. Uh, but it doesn't really matter what the law is. All that matters is what does the state think, and that's the era we're in now. It doesn't really matter what the law is. It doesn't really matter what the Minnesota voter rolls say that Pam Bondi demanded when you have tanks at your disposal. Voter rolls don't matter. Uh, they didn't matter in Tiananmen Square, and that's where we're at right now. And a lot of people would poo-poo that, saying I'm being a woke alarmist. But 2 people are dead, and Don Lemon was in jail. And what's next? Uh, when do they, y they arrested a reporter at the Des Moines Register. You know, we're there. We're in the police state.
Yeah, and then a young black woman was hit by a car driven by an older white man at a rally, and it's they legalized hitting people at protests with their cars a few years ago. We did that in the state of Iowa. I couldn't believe that when we did it, and we did it, and it's part of it. And so then they'll have some kind of immunity. And the thing is that there's so much happening, so many threads, so many things that we have to pay attention to that we lose track of them. It's just they throw everything up against the wall and we lose track. And so I want to know, right? And so where they think that we're powerless, we can't do anything. They can do whatever they want to. Their MAGA base, either likes it or isn't paying attention. But it's like what do we do? And that's the next question. First is we can't forget we can't let things play out with Don Lemon, with Georgia Fort, with any other journalist. And so we just can't accept it. And so we have to resist. How do you suggest we resist?
Well, as you noted, twice as many people were outside protesting as were inside listening to Donald Trump's lies at the Horizon Event Center in Clive, and so you start there. Um, we're resisting, I'd like to think, by, calling out, the government. We continue to, in the legacy media and on Substack, uh, and so I think we're doing all we can, but, we're f we're fighting a totalitarian state. This is not so much different than Stalin, and Americans are just waking up to it when they start shooting white people in the street. White people with, it's okay with Americans when they suffocate George Floyd, but when they start shooting white guys who have their own guns, well, that's a whole different story. And I'm just disgusted. I don't know what country I'm living in anymore. But I realize I've been fooling myself for a long time about freedom and about what the promise of America was. It's deeply disturbing to me. But uh, like I say, I sound like an old liberal uh, quiche eater. But uh, I guess I am.
Yeah, well, it makes two of us. Now, the people of Minnesota stood strong and fought back and protested. And Trump did something that he doesn't do very often. I think it's just temporary. Was uh, Greg Bovino, and if there's any American fascist, he's the well. Let me say that there are American fascists, and they work for Donald Trump, who is one. But Bovino looked pure Gestapo, and he's fired now. He lost his job. Homan is now in, the guy that took a $50,000 bribe that the
It's like
Trump.
replacing
Yeah,
Steve King with Randy Feenstra.
yeah.
Same thing.
But he says that they're going to maybe pull back. We'll see. So the
And
Minnesota
then
people,
Trump says, "No, no, we're not."
yeah. But I guess I have a glimmer of hope in that Minnesota stood up and fought back, and Iowans the other day at the Trump rally,
Don't forget Chicago stood up and fought back too.
and LA stood up and fought
That's
back.
right.
And so we can it's the people and it's the power of the people that can make them pay attention. And we need to rain holy hell down on our Republican members of Congress. We need to protest. We need to let them know that we're not happy about it, and we'll see. I see. First, we've got a couple of comments. I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, but thank you, um, Leisha.
I'd like to welcome Rosemary Pratt and extend our sympathies to her on the loss of her husband, the judge, Robert Pratt.
Yes, I saw that. Yes, our condolences. Um, Leisha says withhold federal tax. I've heard people say that before. We'll see if that gets any traction. Brian Steffen says Brian is a friend who's a professor at Simpson College. He says, here is the biggest obstacle to effective resistance. The right controls public discourse in America. It turns any reasonable, moderate Democrat or Trumper into a raving socialist maniac, lover of trans people, and destroyer of American values. Rob Sand may be running well now against Randy Feenstra, but just look at the narrative by next September and October. Okay, and so here's something else I want to get your thoughts on. Art. So Trump wants us used to seeing ICE, his own personal army, on our streets. He wants us scared. Ultimately, they want us
Yeah.
scared and appreciative of any bone they throw at us, any semblance of normalcy. And so that's what they want. So we're used to ICE on the street. They're
The
untrained.
Mexicans in Storm Lake are terrified. The meat packing workers are going to keep their heads down and keep cranking out that pork, 15,000 hogs a day, because they're scared shitless. And so it's working out just like they intended.
Well, and I was talking to somebody at the Capitol the other day that represents immigrants, and they're setting up some people. Jason Lawsmith and I have done a couple of very interesting portrait series where we interviewed people that were on food stamps when the food stamps were going to go away, and in November we interviewed them, and that was and we call it portraits of the hungry, and there were some very compelling interviews. We also did a series with women that were just out of prison, and I'm setting up something with immigrants. And in setting that up yesterday or the day before, one of the stories that we're going to do, hopefully, is with an Afghan family where they're here legally. And as I understand it, the husband actually helped our troops in Afghanistan. They're here legally. The kids were first able to go to school, and then the Taliban came and they couldn't go to school, especially the girls. And now this family is hiding in their basement, not able to go to school. And they're saying it's like being under the Taliban again. So this is the American Taliban.
Yeah, and they were going to arrest this 50-something-year-old Hmong man uh, in the Twin Cities in his underwear, and they're dragging him outside in the cold. And of course, he was fighting on our side in Cambodia, and yeah, and where are they gonna deport him? To Cambodia? They arrested at least 4 members of the Oglala Sioux Nation. Uh, are they deporting them where? This is their country. We took it from them, and, they're gonna deport them to Pine Ridge or where?
I think
And
there's
by the way, I don't know, there's been no accounting made. These people are nobody knows where they are.
Yeah, nobody knows where they are, and
People
there was
disappear. This is it. This is what happened under Stalin, and people squealing on each other. It's just like what happened under Stalin, and Americans got to wake up to it.
yeah, and we're looking at a government shutdown as Chip, um, mentions to us, and, we'll see if that makes any difference. I'm not gonna predict anything, but one of the things a point I wanna make is that
It sounds like they may have a deal, but then again, it sounds like they might not. That it sounds like the deal may be off, so the government could shut down again.
well, I think that they want us used to ice on the street. When Trump was here and numerous other times, he said we shouldn't have the midterm elections. I take him at his word. This is what he wants. And I think, and he's already sought to overturn one election. He's still trying to overturn it. And he's going to be arresting election officials. Tulsi Gabbard and FBI
Right.
people were down in Georgia wanting those ballots, that Trump's been
And
talking
they
about.
want them from Minnesota too. But again, what's the point? I guess, they had votes for Hugo Chavez too, and Castro, and and Stalin. Uh, Hitler. They had elections for him, I suppose, where they get 80% of the vote, right? W Is that what we're headed to? Again, why do you need the voter rolls from Minnesota when you already have, you know, the tanks and the fighter jets? Uh, is it just to buy some legitimacy with, "Yeah, we had an election"?
Well, he's gonna I think
And
he's
I know
gonna
that sounds crazy, but I think that's actually where we're at.
well, of course, it sounds crazy, and I don't know how many I mean, how many times I can't say how many times when I've predicted the worst and said, "I hope I was wrong," that people have said, "Oh, that's hyperbole, Bob, you're overreacting," and I think there's some people that would say that of both of us today, but I think he's going to try not to hold the elections, and if the elections are held and he doesn't like the outcome, he's going to use ICE to capture the ballot boxes, to do whatever he has to do. I think that we need to
Well,
be
he's already proven that he'll
preemptive.
stop at nothing. He will shoot you right in the head. He's already proven that and very clear about it, and he has no regrets of shooting Renee Good in the head. So he'd do the same thing to Bob Leonard. Count on it.
With respect to the ballots, here in Marion County, maybe it's the same, uh, in other counties, but our conservation officers go to Melcher, Dallas, and Pleasantville, and Pella, and all the places away from Knoxville, which is the county seat, and they take the ballots. They're law enforcement officers. They escort the ballots to the courthouse to be counted. Iowa is currently considering a law where our law enforcement officials have to comply with the wishes of ICE. In the last election, if some members of ICE came to our conservation officers and said, "Give me the ballots," our conservation officers would have said, "Hell no."
Right.
Now, Iowa's passing a law that our conservation officers, our law enforcement officers, where they could be defending our ballots, where they see it's their role to defend our ballots. Their role now, if Iowa passes this law, is to hand over the ballots, to
A
comply with.
similar law was already struck down, or at least an injunction was placed against it. I'm not sure what the status of it is at this point. Uh, but yeah, I catch your drift, and uh, that this is all set up for a kangaroo election, and that is probably the case. Uh, if they'll shoot you in the head for it, uh, they'll do anything.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of things that they're doing that just we would have never have accepted. Defunding the National Weather Service for at least part of it, it's record keeping. The ending of child cancer research. The ending of USAID that was building so much goodwill around the world that where we would supply people, children with HIV for a few cents a day. We could get them the medications that they needed. And a researcher from, I think it was Boston University, reported in the New York Times, been reported several times, that it's been calculated that because of our ending of USAID funding, 106 people around the world are dying per hour. And the
Yeah.
American people don't
y-
care.
And, child cancer trials end at the University of Iowa hospitals because of it. Uh, and then we all wave to those same children during football games, uh, and say, you know, "I hope you recover from your cancer even though we're interrupting your treatment." Uh, how sick are we?
Yeah.
But I'm kinda fed up. I don't know what I'm doing in this country, and, I would, go to Canada if I could afford to, or someplace else. I'd like to leave Iowa, but I can't, and, uh, so I'm probably not a good person to listen to today. It's cold out there, it's windy. And then you call and say, "Don Lemon's arrested. We gotta go talk on the air about this, Art." You know? Wow.
Yeah. A couple of things in the comments. Robin says USAID was also funding regime change operations that hid behind helping people. Yeah, that may well be true. I'm just focusing on the good things that we were doing. You're probably right. Um, and Marjorie says, but we didn't get out in March when those things were happening, when that was being defunded. Yeah, we didn't. And part of it is they're wearing us out. We can't march 24/7, 365. I mean, we try. And Ken says a friend's adopted legal citizen Chinese baby, now 27, fears capture. Fearing capture, American citizens fearing capture and deportation because of their race, their ethnicity. And, we white people seem to be okay. Well, now we've shot and killed two white people or they shot and killed two white people in Minneapolis, and people are paying attention. But I mean, we can't be out there protesting all the time. We can just do what we can do and what we feel safe at. And it's like you can write letters to the editor, you can fund progressive groups, you can purchase a subscription to the Storm Lake Times pilot. You can
Thank you, Bob. Doctor Bob. He's a doctor. He knows what he's talking about.
I know. I'm an anthropologist that tries to figure out how the way the world works. That's what I am. But it's we we resist in any way that we can. We just and so if it's
Well,
right
okay,
or
here's one. They continue to attack, Iowa's higher education system, and it's all part of the same agenda of suppressing speech and scaring the hell out of people. And, in the legislature right now, they're trying to uh, really harm Iowa's, higher education system, and private colleges in particular, taxing endowments, and they're aiming at Grinnell and Drake, uh, but, what they're gonna end up doing is hitting Buena Vista and Morningside and Dort and Northwestern, um, and it's all part of the same agenda. They don't care. They'll shut down all of them so long as they can, uh, uh control the curriculum through the community colleges, for example. It's we're throwing freedom down the drain.
yes, and it's all to have us they want us in fear. They want us poor. They want us just barely able to survive, to work for minimum wage. They don't want our kids and grandkids to go to good schools. They want them. That's why we have the vouchers to reinforce um, Christian schools, the ones that I know are good. I don't have any complaints about the one that I know, except they should be paying for their we have public schools like we have public roads. You
Yeah.
don't you wouldn't pay for a private road, to go to a mansion. You wouldn't pay for a private pool, use taxpayer dollars for a private
My
pool.
my dad thought those Catholic schools were just fine. He just didn't approve of those Dutch Reform schools. He didn't think they ought to deserve any public money, and I'm sure the Dutch Reform people didn't think the Catholics deserved that public money, and it was a lot better that way, you know? Uh,
But they don't deserve public money.
yeah, they do that's right,
And you know what? There's something, our Constitution says that tax
and I
dollars.
graduated from St. Mary's High School in Storm Lake, so there.
Did you get, public money?
No.
Well,
No,
you're
we
doing
didn't even
fine,
get school lunch money back then.
and you're doing fine without it.
Yeah, we got by. Yeah,
Well, and so we wouldn't fund a private golf course that wouldn't let us play on it if we wanted to, which we don't, but they or a private pool that they wouldn't let our kids swim in, but we're paying for private schools that don't have to accept our kids.
right,
So they're indoctrinating the way that they want to. The public
right.
schools get such a bad rap. I know so many great public school teachers, and, I admire and respect them. I mean, I did fine on a public school education, and I think that they need to be stronger. So, I don't know,
Yeah, and
their
I'm not opposed to, vouchers, for private schools, as long as you're not slashing public education budgets and slashing income taxes and shifting, the whole entire tax burden of the state to property taxes and sales taxes. My property taxes, I can barely afford to live in my house. And, I think, that it's okay to support vouchers for private schools so long as you're supporting public schools, and we're not. Yeah. I think that's a pragmatic point of view, and then but they people say I'm woke and out of my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, so, that's I was always
I
bothered.
used to be a fairly conservative Democrat, and now people think I'm a flamer, you know?
That whole woke thing, that the criticism of woke is just like, I guess there's some, places where it goes too far, but it's few and far between. To me, it means, just like, as originally it came out of Black culture, it's just like to be aware of what is happening about around you, be aware of injustice, um, and it's just something. Beware of discrimination. Be aware of the harm the state imposes upon us. Anthropologists use the word structural violence, and structural violence is when the state, the power of the state, is used to stop people from living a life where they can be productive. I wrote a piece about this. I saw an old woman on the sidewalk. It was in the summer, fortunately, and I went up and I asked her. I said, "Are you okay?" And she looked at me, concerned by the look on my face, and she said, "Yeah, are you okay?" And it was like, what society do we live in where an old woman is laying in the street? She doesn't have any food. She isn't getting the mental health care that she needs. That is state-sponsored structural violence. I went up. I like to talk to people that are standing on the street corner asking for money, and I went up and talked. I want to know their stories. I went and I talked to this one guy, big, strong guy from Romania, looking for a job. He had a card to get here, but didn't have a work permit. So here was this big, strong guy, and just across the highway was Weiler. They're desperate for machinists. They're desperate for welders, and they won't. And this guy can't find a job. That's a different kind of structural violence. Walmart not paying its people enough to be able to afford a life. That's corporate, state-sponsored corporate violence against the American people. We're just being squeezed to the bone by by the state and by corporations, and we act like it's just normal. It's like we just have to take it.
Yeah, I concur. It strikes me one of the things we were talking about, you know, it is whatever happened to Iowa conservatives, real conservatives who didn't believe in giving, ICE a bigger budget than the Navy, you know, and, you know, we used to have spending hawks, H.R. Gross. What happened to those conservatives in Iowa who believed in a small government and not peering in people's bedroom windows what happened to conservatives? This is what's going on in the Twin Cities is not conservative at all. It's totalitarian statism. It's National Socialism. It's Stalinism, and it's not conservative. It's not what Eisenhower would recommend. What's happened?
Yeah. I think what the fact of the matter is.
What would H.R. Gross voted against the Vietnam War because it was too expensive. And, you know, what happened to that Iowa good sense, and why can't we summon that? Why is it that we don't know how to summon that common sense anymore? And re and engage and put that common sense at the center of our civic discussion. I digress.
Mhm. Well, I wanna say something. Somebody in the comments have already passed that. First, D'Artagnan said, "That's why when we talk about woke, that's why Christopher Rufo was brought in to destroy the term woke." I subscribe to his newsletter, and he's sort of this intellectual behind contemporary MAGA. I almost said conservatism, but you're right, there's nothing conservative about MAGA. But he
No.
wrote the other day that the news that they want, the MAGA news that they're creating, isn't about reflecting reality. It's about creating reality and getting people to believe it.
Yeah.
And that's what MAGA media, Fox, WHO radio here in Des Moines,
That invading Venezuela and kidnapping its tin pot dictator, that is conservative. It stymies me, what a conservative is anymore.
well, Ron,
Where are they? What happened to Chuck Grassley? He was supposed to be a maverick conservative. What happened to him? Why does he have no moral spine? Because Iowans don't demand it of him, and, it seems to me.
I just don't understand how they do it. I don't understand how there's so many people that won't stand up what what they were taught to believe. What are their values? I don't believe that all of these people that are in the MAGA movement, were
Well,
raised.
The Democratic Party isn't speaking to their values, that's one problem, and, uh, they watched, uh, Obama offer hope and change, and nothing happened, and, uh, so the Democrats are somewhat complicit in all this, in Iowa at least.
Mhm. Yeah. There's a lot of blame to go around, and do you see any Democratic leadership that out there, in Iowa or nationally that you think we can look to that actually provide, good leadership?
Well, I would not walk over coals for Rob Sand. But he does appear to be putting in, the old college try for unity, and he's just trying to avoid any kind of criticism as well, but, we really need a good strong dose of centrism, and I think he offers us that, and, so that can almost get me enthusiastic, and the absence of Kim Reynolds gets me downright giddy. Uh, and I do believe that Rob Sand can beat Randy Feenstra, who's kind of a cadaver-like person, a very tall cadaver. And, you see, they wouldn't let him speak in Urbandale with or Clive with Trump. He could only just peer over his shoulder with those big teeth and grin into the camera. They wouldn't let him talk. And he's gonna be the gubernatorial nominee. So, there's some hope there, and like I say, Rob Sand is no Harold Hughes, but, he'll do in a pinch.
And I'll have to say something about Feenstra. I was in Oskaloosa, and I wrote
That was
about
tremendous, Bob.
yeah. I went there was, like, maybe a dozen people were there, and I recorded him. He was asked about what ICE was doing in Minneapolis, and he said that he talked about it a little bit, and, but ultimately said that the ICE violence was incidental. Renee
Right,
Good, incidental.
right.
That's how he sees it. The thing about Feenstra is I'd never seen him speak before. I figured he must be a really bad speaker since they don't let him out,
Right.
but he actually was a fine speaker in this group.
Yeah.
But I tell you, his staffer I said to her, "I would like a minute with him, please." I said I was a member of the media before, and I said, "I wanna ask him about stuff." She said, "What do you wanna ask him about?" I said, "Well, the carbon pipeline." And she said, "Well, he already
Does he
answered."
look like Herman Munster in person?
Um, now that you say that, oh, yeah, he does. And then I said, "I
That's
want
mean,
to."
I'm sorry. I'm just
That's
feeling mean, though. They're being pretty mean to Northwest Iowa, I think.
yeah, they are. And then she asked me, "What else do I wanna ask?" I said, "I wanna ask about it if he's seen the Renee Good, uh, video." And and he was willing to talk with me, but she wouldn't let him. She was a
Yeah.
powerful force. I think she's got a pretty tight rein on him because he was willing to talk with me. So, I'm wondering where since I saw him speak well for a Republican, why they're not letting him speak.
Uh, that's a good question. He's desperately seeking, Trump's endorsement and can't get it, and I understand they wanted to put Zach Nunn front and center, because he's in a very difficult, 3rd district, race down there. He might get beat. And so I understand why they wanted to put him up front and Ashley Hinson, uh, and there's nothing in it for Trump to I guess, to have Randy Feenstra out front, uh, but it's interesting inside politics. I don't know why they don't want him to speak, but, he's not even real popular up around Hull. The the, uh, uh, the populists think he's an elitist, and, so it'll be real interesting to see how this primary shakes out. He's probably got enough money and endorsements to buy the nomination, uh, uh, but he's not a very popular candidate. He did, however, beat Steve King.
Yes, he did. I wanna add one more thing. I wanna say that ICE is in Minnesota, and people are saying, "Well, you're in a red state, you're safe." That seat was Zach Nunn, and that seat, um, Marionette Miller Meeks, those are gonna be 2 of the most highly contested, elections, and if Trump doesn't like the way those elections go, you can expect that those forces are going to be in Iowa to try to change the results of the election if they don't go the way that he went or the way that Trump wanted it. Any final thoughts? We're coming up on an hour. Art, any final thoughts?
Well, you know, pray to God that we can dig our way out of this hole we're in. It I don't know what the answer is, to reclaiming what we thought was freedom, but we're letting it slip away from us, and, beware. And
Yeah.
have a nice day today, Bob.
I just wanna end that as long as are here together, that we're fighting, that we're doing any little thing that we can, whether it's writing letters to the editor, supporting fine newspapers like The Time. certainly
D'Artagnan Brown says Iowans standing together is the only solution, man. He's right.
he's right. So let's thank you, D'Artagnan. Thanks for everybody for coming. This has been very good. I'm glad that Art was willing to come on today. But overall, I'm hopeful in part because all of you are here. You're engaging. Please go forth and change the world.
Well, thanks, Bob.
Thanks, everybody.